Namaste. So, I've been a little bit under the weather off and on for this last week, give or take a couple of days, and then before that, a week ago, which is unusual for me. I don't usually feel that kind of fluish thing. But I also know that when that does happen, in most cases, it's things working themselves out inside the body, inside the psychology, even. And with me, I really do feel that psychologically there's stuff going on, and upgrading and unloading, fixing, releasing, repairing. I want to show you a photograph, a very special, precious photograph. And this is an uncle, Nisar uncle, and that's me up there. And this is taken in Kuwait, where I was born and raised. I was there till I was 15, and Nisar uncle is a dear family friend of ours. And this photograph was just gifted to us, to me, to my mom recently when we met with them. Of course, you know, they're much older now, Nisar uncle and his dear wife, Shumi Munti. But the reason I bring it up is, wow, even if as I speak about it, I'm getting emotional. When they pulled out this photograph, along with a couple of other photographs of an image that Nisar uncle took, a photograph he took of my grandmother's bungalow in Kothrood, which is in Pune, and we used to visit every other year, summer vacation from Kuwait. We used to come to India, my family and I, and we used to visit Tai, my grandmother. And this uncle obviously has also been there many years ago, and he's taken a beautiful photograph. He is a photographer, and he's got a great eye for that. So he captured this angle of the bungalow, which, along with this photograph that I just shared, that was taken in Kuwait, it just flooded me with so many amazing, special memories. And the memories were not like events. They were not events. They were spaces. There were empty spaces that I passed through, whether it was in my grandmother's home where I can actually still smell that space, that fragrance there of that storage room, or the pantry, or her walk-in closet, or the living room. It's just an energy, essence, and it's so vivid. And the same goes with the apartment in Kuwait where I grew up. And in that image, it's the uncle and me, and that itself fills me with a lot of treasured energy. And it's also the spaces around and the items, not the items themselves, but the energy around that experience. And I realized how there's actually so much, like in this lifetime. I feel like I've lived so many lifetimes. I'm sure a lot of us do. And yet, what is the essence of those experiences is the purity of the space, for lack of a better word, the essence of our true self or another's, and the environment. And I do feel it's kind of tying into the whole your center thing that's going on right now, that's physically coming into existence also. It is about coming into our center. It is about coming into the reality and the truth and the purity of us, of each of us, and what life actually is in this human experience and what it isn't. And there is a feeling, I mean, if you go to visit different countries for a short amount of time and you choose the spaces you want to be in, if you want to just be in nature and you just want to be with, for example, tribal people, the indigenous people, then you of course experience the beauty of that, the essence, the purity of life itself, simple at its most truest form, not cluttered with noise and distractions that are filling up space, because human beings have been now programmed, conditioned to not be comfortable with that emptiness, and that simplicity and that purity. So if you visit deliberately spaces that allow you to experience the essence of life, the depth of life, the joy of life, the simplicity of life energy, that's one thing. And you can say, oh, it's so much still alive today. But if you're living every day in a city or a town, you do notice how many times it's not experienced so much. Sorry about all the shaking. The essence of being present here and now, no distractions, connecting with one's own true self at the same time as just being connected to this moment of environment and of presence of anyone else. That's our center. That's our space. It isn't ruled and defined by anything material, man-made. We are not any definition of what society has defined us as, whether it is a role we are playing in our profession, whether it is the bank balance we have in our accounts, or the amount we have invested in properties or shares, mutual funds, or companies, or whatever. It's not the position we hold. It's none of that. It's none of that. And yet so much of that decides what's going on in here for people living everyday life. When they look at another, there's ideas that pop up about the other or self in maybe comparison, or just in programming without comparison, just an idea one has. So much just gets covered up that's so important, what's really important. And I do feel like the photograph I just shared, there's so much care, I know, in that relationship. It was then, it was a couple years before then, when I was younger, and I knew the uncle even then, and it's even now. And he's just an example, one example of others that I've cared about and who've cared about me in this blink of a lifetime. Speaking so much from the heart. And I think that's what's working through me right now. That's why maybe that physical feeling is I personally have had to I've had to go through various chapters of life, and I'm grateful for every one. But I've never forgotten the people or the care. Never. I'm just speaking for myself, and I know when I speak for myself, I'm sure I'm speaking for a lot of you. That the energy of care, true care, which is at par with true love, doesn't die. It never dies. It can't. It can be covered up. People can forget. And that would be unfortunate, because that's the only thing that's eternal and truly what life is about. Being present, always. Connected to the energy of love, the energy of care. I have several people in my life I know who I may not see for 10 years, maybe more. And yet, if we were to connect, which has happened, it's like, yesterday. I mean, there is no time measure to our connection or the depth of our connection. It isn't affected by distance. Personally, I don't even forget people I've cared for or people who've cared for me. And when I say that, I mean, I remember energetically the bond. It's not a mental thing, it's a heart thing, I guess. It's a heart thing. So I don't necessarily, like many of us, I'm sure, I don't automatically, I'm just not made to need to stay physically in touch or verbally in touch. And many people, I believe, have lived like that. Yet energetically, there's no distance, there's no separation, there's no forgetting, there's no decrease in valuing somebody or the bond, the strength of the bond, and the caring that goes with that. And I'm so grateful that at this time in my life, I am experiencing interesting, not so interesting, and interesting personalities who perhaps aren't able to stay connected to the caring energy, and those who are. And when I see both of these types of life forms, when I experience them, it just reminds me of how important it is to return to the center of who we are, always to remain grounded in it, rooted in it, and to somehow figure out if we're not, and to do whatever it is, to intention to come back to our center, to our heart space, to our soul heart space, not an emotional neediness, and we've already covered that, but that soul bond, that depth of care that knows no time, that knows no space, no distance. It's a place to truly call eternal and forever, forever and ever. It doesn't die. God bless you, and I care about you.